You talked about companies creating a brand differentiation and they go to global markets for Indian companies. Take something from healing or. Are you expecting this from the company leaders or the country leaders? Because if India has to go out and create a brand, it has to go out as a country. For example, you talked about German engineering.
Beautiful, good. See, Japan Foundation is a good model. Korea Foundation, China Institute. They started Confucian Institutes, a few hundred of them. They're called Confucian Institutes. In all three of these examples, it's a corporate government alliance. Government organizes it, put money into it, corporates join in. The Japan Foundation, there was Japan bashing in the first Bush, senior Bush era, that they're dumping products, we should put sanctions on them. If you remember that, there was that Japan bashing era. The Japan Foundation decided that they're going to train 20,000 American school teachers how to teach Japan in a way which is Japan friendly. So they developed these DVDs, they put up 4 centers in the United States where school teachers would be brought, they would be given a little stipend, and they would be taught how to teach Japan back in school, and they would be given the whole kit. And then they would go and teach, and the ones who were very good could come back for an intermediate course, and then the ones who went to advanced course would be sent to Japan at their expense. So whole program. This went on for 5-8 years, 20,000 teachers were trained, and the whole new group of Americans have been taught that Japan are wonderful people, they're good people, because they've been trained a certain way. So Japan Foundation gets credit for that. Korea Foundation has one bookshelf of books on Korea, created very patriotically. There is no caste cows curry type like Indian. If you asked Indians to do it, a lot of these left-wing social scientists would say what all is wrong with us. That's what they'll tell you. So the Korea Foundation has on their history, on their technology, on their dance, music, culture, this, that, all of those things, political history, whatever. Very nice. And they give it to libraries. Now I'll tell you an experience. I was chair of Asian Studies in the state of New Jersey. There was a very kind of nice governor who later left. So he created this commission on Asian Studies because the idea being that future generation of Americans will be having to deal with Asia and they better be well informed. So I was made the chair. So we took a whole, people from all over Asia were on this commission, I was chairing, and so we came up with a whole write-up on what are the major themes in Asia, Asian studies. So one of them was the export of knowledge and culture from India to the rest of Asia. Not only Buddhism as a religion, but a lot of things went. A lot of mathematics went, astronomy went, medicine went, a lot of images, iconography, art, all kind of stuff went, architecture. So we built all these modules. 2 Indians on this were the ones who were always opposing me. They were saying, but why aren't you talking about what's the plight of Dalits? So I said, but in the American school system, these are 6th grade, 8th grade people, you don't teach slavery. I mean, you do not teach that. And when they have modules on France and when they have modules on these other countries, those countries are being taught in a very proud way. But these people were so full of that. So I had to neutralize them. So I had a little gathering in my house. I didn't invite them. I invited the Chinese, the Japanese, the person from Myanmar, the Vietnamese, the Thai people, Cambodians. I invited these representatives. We had a nice discussion. And I said, what do you think? Do you feel that, like they're teaching Western civilization, which is standard to be taught, blacks are wanting to teach African civilizations, how they actually contributed to Egypt, and then Egypt contributed to Greece, and so all of that stuff they're teaching. So why aren't we able to teach all the great positive things? Every one of them supported me. So I said, I'll tell you what, next time we have this Asian Commission meeting, I want you to raise this issue because those 2 guys won't listen to anything I have to say. So I kept my mouth shut at the next meeting. It was Chinese guy who started this discussion that we don't want any of negative stuff. The Vietnamese guy said this lady from Myanmar was very tough. So they took over, and after that the 2 Indians left. So I have problem with the India art people. A deep inferiority complex about anything positive. You try and say something positive, there will be somebody there saying, raising his hand and saying, but why don't we discuss, we had this suicide the other day, women got burned, some this and that. Well, that's fine. But if you're talking about building a brand, the others are not talking about these issues. Chinese will not, in Harvard, the Tibetans complain that whenever there's a China event, there is no Tibetan descent allowed. They just somehow cleaned out. They complain about it. The Chinese have so much clout that they can demand that. Indian ambassador comes, there'll be all this Kashmir separatist and this Khalistani group and that group, all there shouting one lot. We just haven't had the clout to say, okay, out with those guys. So we are not able to control the brand image of a civilization to the same extent that some other people are. That's
because we don't consider it of strategic importance that
Also disunity within here. Also we've had two generations of the Romila Thapar children. Irfan Habib, Romila Thapar. R.C. Majumdar wrote this History of India, multiple volumes, after independence. It was very solid, very patriotic. And then came the age of coalition governments, and Indira Gandhi needed support from the left to create her government. And so what they extracted, nowadays the coalition partners would extract a ministry because you get more bribes that way. But in those days the left didn't want any ministry. They said we want all the intellectual positions, the vice chancellorships of universities. That's when all these leftists got in. And the Indian Council of Historical Research, CSDS, these kind of left-wing social sciences institutions were set up and given to the left. So they put in place the entire ideology which we are still living with. It's not been dismantled. Even 2 years of Modi government, they have not really done anything.
No, that's because you need a bunch of intellectuals working on it very seriously to be able to dismantle that as well, to come up with an alternative.
You need to replace those guys with people who are qualified. I'm not sure that the Hindu political establishment has really created intellectual resources.
I completely agree. So
do you think that the children have to be not insecure in India, the next generation? They need to learn the right history of India?
Yes. So
Start from the schools.
yeah, and so the strange thing is, yes, this is true. So even the Chinmay mission schools, the Ramakrishna mission schools, they're teaching religious, spiritual ideas, and they're teaching yoga, meditation, good ethics, and so on. But when it comes to history, they're still following a lot of the same stuff. And my foundation started a project on the history of Indian science and technology, and we have now got 10 volumes out. Each volume takes 3 years. Because somebody called Joseph Needham in Cambridge had developed 30 volumes or some large number of volumes on Chinese science and technology. So this became the standard resource book any China Studies Center uses, because when you study the history of China, it's not just about what they were doing, violence and who they were oppressing. It also has to include their contributions to science and technology. This is a very important thing for India to have, a corpus of work on the Indian contributions to science and technology. Nobody would have joined this. I went to IITs, I went to previously Murli Manohar Joshi, then this Kapil Sibal, they all talked about, yeah, it's great, but no one was willing to help me. So with whatever resources, we produced 10 volumes, they exist. You can buy those 10 volumes, they exist. But this could be huge. And this kind of a thing ought to be put into the curriculum for schools, because this is written at the university level. This could be put at lower level. This could be made into documentaries. And this kind of knowledge of the intellectual contributions of India is very important part of our history. Because when people think of history in the Indian sense, they think it's all about who invaded whom, and who won and who lost, and which year it happened, and who destroyed what. But that's just one part of history. The history of violence. There's also a history of culture and civilization.